The silence was deafening, but not empty. It was thick with the memory of voices. He stumbled outside, the air tasting of ozone and something faintly metallic, like the smell after a lightning strike. No birds sang, no engines hummed in the distance, just the oppressive weight of absolute stillness pressing against his eardrums. His own front door stood open behind him, the kitchen light still on, a half-eaten bowl of cereal on the table, but the house was hollow. He checked his phone. Full signal, no missed calls, no new messages. His last text to his wife, sent hours ago, was still marked delivered. A chill ran down his spine as he realized the truth. They weren't taken, they were undone, erased from existence, leaving only the ghost of their lives behind. He was alone in a world that looked exactly the same, except for one unbearable, impossible detail. He was the only person left in it, erased. That's what happened to an entire Oklahoma town on a morning just like this one. But the most terrifying detail isn't that they vanished. The evidence suggests they didn't disappear into thin air. Something else was here, something that left traces. They vanished into another time. The air in that empty street carried the scent of ozone and forgotten dust. His breath hitched as his fingers brushed the boot's cold, damp leather. Then, a faint scratching sound began to echo from the watch's frozen fate. The wind rose once more, carrying a sound like a low, grieving moan. This was not a haunting, it was a fracture in reality itself.
And for one man, that fracture yawned open directly beneath him. October 17, 1897. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and damp soil. Cobalt Junction, Oklahoma Territory. A speck on the map, home to 287 souls. It was a railroad town, tough but hopeful. Dust, sweat, and the dream of something better. Cobalt Junction basked in the warm, golden hour light, its wooden buildings and bustling saloon alive with movement. John Carter, 32 and ruggedly kind, stood on his porch with his wife Sarah, watching the day fade.
The air carried the scent of pine and distant wood smoke as the last amber light washed over the quiet street. For a moment, everything felt perfectly, peacefully ordinary. Sarah hung the laundry, her work-worn hands moving with practiced rhythm as she offered John a weary smile. John Carter was a blacksmith, a man who trusted only what he could see and touch, the solid weight of his anvil, the searing heat of his forge. His world was built around Sarah, his wife of 5 years, and the steady, predictable cadence of their life together. But in the quiet moments, a faint scent of ozone would sometimes linger in the air, a metallic tang that didn't belong. That rhythm was about to break. Interior, night. John and Sarah sit at a small kitchen table. The air hangs thick and unnaturally still. Sarah stirs her tea, her gaze fixed on the swirling liquid, not looking up. Her voice is a flat, quiet disturbance in the dead air. "Did you hear it last night, John?" John's voice dropped to a whisper. "Hear what?" Sarah's gaze remained fixed on the darkness beyond the window. "The singing." She finally breathed out, the words tasting wrong. From the plains, it wasn't right. No melody emerged, just a chaotic tangle of dissonant whispers. John offered a gentle, knowing smile, his eyes holding a secret. "Just the wind in the old telegraph wires, darling," he murmured, the air tasting of damp earth and cold iron. His voice was a low comfort, but his words felt like a key turning in a lock we didn't know existed. Sarah's gaze locked onto his, her eyes wide and deeply unsettled. "The wires were down," she whispered, the words hanging in the heavy air. A faint scent of ozone lingered, sharp and unnatural. "Mike Jenkins fixed them yesterday. I checked." A beat of silence. The oil lamp flickered, though there was no draft.
It began with the sounds. Whispers slithered through the wheat when the air was perfectly still. Then, a child's bright laughter echoed up from the depths of a dry, abandoned well. Then came the silences.
Every clock in town would halt, their mechanisms falling still for exactly 17 minutes. Dogs would seize up, their snarls choked off, every muzzle pointing rigidly east. They were all fixed on the old Shawnee burial grounds just beyond the town line, as if pulled by some invisible thread of dread. A weathervane shrieks to an abrupt stop, its metal groaning against the unnatural stillness. On a stove, a pot of water sits cold and inert, defying the flame licking its base. Shadows stretch and twist, their forms no longer tethered to the objects that should cast them. The town doctor, Michael Andrews, a man of science, confided in his journal, "A profound disquiet has settled over Cobalt. It is not sickness." The town seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for a door to open. In the blacksmith shop, John worked with a lethargic fire, the metal turning brittle under his hammer. Mike, the telegraph operator, entered pale, the scent of ozone clinging to his coat. His voice dropped to a whisper. "The lines are gone, John." "Cut?" Mike's voice was flat, hollow. "No, I walked the route to Guffey. The poles are there. The air in the truck cab grew thick, with the smell of damp earth and something metallic, like old coins. His knuckles were bone white on the wheel. Every word felt forced out, scraped from some deep, cold place inside him. The statement hung there, simple and final. The poles are there. It wasn't reassurance. It was a verdict. The insulators hung there, silent and forgotten. But the wire, it just ended. Not snapped clean by force, not severed by a blade. It simply ceased to exist, as if the metal had forgotten its purpose and dissolved into the damp, ozone-charged air. A primal stillness took hold, broken only by the distant, rhythmic drip of water and the scent of scorched insulation. It felt like the guitar's neck had never been strung beyond this specific point, as if its purpose had been abruptly severed. The atmosphere itself had become a palpable entity, tasting sharply of ozone and the deep, mineral tang of ancient soil. He wiped his brow, his hand coming away slicked with a cold sweat that left a strange, ashen streak on his skin. Staring at the grimy residue on his palm, a sudden, profound stillness gripped him. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. The black powder coating the anvil wasn't soot. It was a fine, silver-gray dust that shimmered unnaturally under the dim light. John's voice dropped to a whisper. "What is this? From a forge?" The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and cold iron as Mike reached out. His fingertips brushed the strange powder, and the temperature in the room plummeted. A frigid, penetrating cold had settled into the very stone around them. Mike's voice was a low rasp, carrying a truth more chilling than the air. "Your fire's been dead for hours, John." The final night arrived, not with a gradual dusk, but with a violent, sucking plunge. In a single, merciless hour, the world outside their feeble shelter dropped 40 degrees, stealing the last hope of warmth from their bones. A fog crept in, not white, but a pale, shimmering gray that seemed to swallow the world. It carried the faint, metallic scent of ozone, a sharp tang that clung to the back of the throat, and through that unnatural haze, lights began to pulse, not the warm flicker of lanterns, nor the crackling dance of fire, but something cold, silent, and utterly alien. Outside the Carter home, bobbing willow, the wisp lights drifted past the window, their eerie glow seeming to beckon with silent intent. Inside, John and Sarah watched, pressed together, their breaths shallow as they tracked the spectral procession. The world beyond the pane had fallen into an absolute, unnatural quiet, broken only by the faint, dry rustle of dead leaves. An ozone tang, sharp and metallic, seeped through the glass, carrying with it a deep, primal unease. The night held its breath. No crickets, no wind, just a cold dampness that clung to the skin. Sarah trembled, her voice barely a whisper. "They're calling, John. Can't you hear it? It's our names." The words hung in the stagnant air, heavy with implication. Then, her breath hitched. "But it's my mother's voice. 10 years in the grave, yet she stands before us." John's voice is a strained whisper, edged with desperation. "It's a trick. We don't move," he insists, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. "We wait for dawn," he finishes, as a distant scratching begins in the darkness beyond. Through the back window, John glimpsed a silhouette moving through the fog. It was old Mr. Peterson, moving with unnatural steadiness toward the distant lights, his nightshirt emitting an eerie, phosphorescent glow. John's breath hitched as he realized what he was witnessing, the metallic scent of ozone creeping through the cracked window. In that moment, John made a choice, the blacksmith's choice, to confront, to strike. He kissed Sarah, told her to bolt the door, and he stepped out into the silent, shimmering gray. Dinner plates sat abandoned, steam still curling from half-eaten meals as if the town had collectively vanished between bites. Nearby, a rocking chair swayed gently in the still air, its rhythmic creak the only sound in the abandoned house. The entire settlement felt like a museum diorama of interrupted existence. Every object preserved in mid-motion, every life suspended. Following the faint glow to the town's edge, he approached the burial grounds, where the air grew thick with the scent of damp earth and something metallic. The fog grew dense and impenetrable at this point. Those lights began to merge, forming a shimmering vertical curtain like heat haze, but radiating an unnatural cold. Through the wavering veil, John glimpsed vague, towering silhouettes that resembled buildings. Their forms were sleek, elongated, and fundamentally wrong. The lights didn't drift or flicker. They cut through the darkness in razor-straight lines. Then, a low-frequency hum invaded his skull, thick and oppressive, like the air had turned to sludge. He realized, with a dawning horror, it wasn't a gateway to another place he was seeing. It was a window to another when. That relentless hum was the sound of time itself, stretched to a breaking point. John watched as a figure parted the curtain, A man clad in impossible garments, with short hair and a sleek, unfamiliar jacket. Their eyes locked, and in the stranger's widened gaze, John saw his own terror mirrored back at him. The air grew thick with the scent of ozone and old dust, pressing in like a physical weight. A primal dread took hold as John realized this was no ordinary intruder. John opens his mouth to speak. A deafening, silent snap fractures the air. The curtain of light collapses inward, and the omnipresent hum is replaced by a vacuum of sound that punches the air from his lungs. He lands hard in the dirt as a cold, gray dawn light bleeds into the sky. John staggered upright, ears ringing in the sudden, absolute quiet. The oppressive fog had vanished, the ghostly lights extinguished, leaving only a profound, watchful stillness. The air was cold and carried the faint, metallic scent of ozone, old, wet stone. A raw, instinctive dread coiled in his gut as he turned and fled back into the depths of Cobalt Junction. The house offered only emptiness, a hollow shell where Sarah should have been. Her laundry basket sat untouched, the damp fabric releasing a faint, musty odor into the still air. The stove was cold to the touch, its surface radiating only the chill of abandonment. Every trace of warmth had fled, leaving behind a space that felt violated by its own vacancy. John's hammer rested on his anvil, exactly where he'd left it, yet the village of 287 souls had simply ceased to exist. He stood alone, screaming names into the suffocating quiet. His voice didn't echo. It was absorbed by the heavy, metallic air, thick with the scent of ozone, and something faintly sweet, like rust. It's swallowed by the air. The official report called it a mass hysteria event, sudden migration. But no trunks were packed, no horses taken, no money removed from the bank, just people gone. But here's the twist. The air grew heavy, thick with the metallic scent of ozone, as if the very atmosphere was charged. A primal dread took hold, the quiet broken only by the faint, damp rustle of something moving through the grass. The final entry in Dr. Andrews' journal, found abandoned on his desk, reads, 4:37 a.m. The lights are here. His pen dug into the page with desperate pressure, the ink bleeding slightly where his hand trembled. A sharp, metallic scent, like ozone after a lightning strike, hung in the still air of the study. Then, the final, horrifying correction. They are not lights. The last three words were scrawled in a frantic, collapsing script. They are people. From a dawn I cannot comprehend, they emerge silhouettes against the impossible light. Their fingers are extended, not in greeting, but in accusation. A silent summons that vibrates in the marrow. They are calling us through the veil, and the scent of ozone and damp earth hangs thick, a physical weight in the lungs. In this creeping dread, one truth anchors the madness. Sarah Carter is right. I can hear my brother. He died at Gettysburg. We are going to them. The wind sweeps across the barren field, carrying the scent of damp earth and rust. A profound stillness settles, broken only by the faintest whisper of grit against stone. Did the town vanish, or did they finally answer a call the rest of us are too deaf to hear? A call from across the years, carried on a current of cold, metallic air. The people of Cobalt Junction didn't step into a void, they stepped into a when. Narrator. So the next time you're alone, in that last breath of night before dawn, and the world falls into a profound hush, listen. Can you perceive it? The low, resonant hum of a thinning veil? Because if time can snatch away 287 people in an instant, what's to stop it from reaching for you? For a single frame, a flicker of gray, shimmering light dances across the field. Then, sudden blackness swallows everything, leaving only the memory of that impossible light. A distant, tangled whisper of many voices cuts abruptly to an oppressive silence.